If you like Bulbasaur, I'm not gonna call you sadistic. You're not good enough at your job to be sadistic, just like this sad froggish blob. Bulbasaur learns all the powder moves early, but is terrible at using, well, all of them. It's not going to be toxic stalling anything because, let's face it, it's a grass type, and it's all sitting beneath the most Texas Roadhouse looking tumor I've ever seen. What does make you sadistic is if you remember that Ivysaur exists outside of Smash, because that is a pretty ironic level of touch grass right there. I'm going to say this a lot, but middle evolutions are some of the least creative in the series, and this abomination is a prime example. It's just an edgy Team Bulbasaur, but it's not even edgy. Looks too stupid for that. It's just less cute, and is therefore automatically worse than its pre-evolution. Venusaur's model in Stadium perfectly describes anyone that uses it, both there and in any other context. High off their rockers. With more weaknesses than viable type advantages, one of the worst defensive typings possible for a starter focused on defense and stalling, and its two strongest moves actively harming its potential to be used for even a second longer, you are not seeing Poison Draw Frog here in any level of competitive play, and that's for a very good reason. There's about a coin flip's chance that you've ever even played a Pokemon game in your life if you say that Charmander is your favorite. Because if you knew that Gummy Goo here is so comically weak that its entire population could be wiped out by a single rainstorm, you wouldn't want to go anywhere near it for the fear of accidentally kicking it and knocking it into a puddle. Or, you know what? Maybe it's not an accident. I know if my pet had to be continually on fire to survive, I'd want to put it out of its misery with a Super Soaker right to the brain. Tail. Okay, how did this one get past the design head? Neither Charmander nor Charizard even remotely resembles a Pachycephalosaurus, yet they gave the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turd a head crest that I could grab to throw it in the trash where it belongs. And the thing is, it would probably let me, because with how much it falls asleep while it's supposed to be defending its life, I don't even think I would have a problem getting that close. So, Pikachu is obviously the flagship species of Game Freak. I get it, it's cute, it's everywhere, they shove it down your throats at every possible opportunity, but why? Why in the suburban white bomb hell does Charizard have to be the most popular among people who've never seen a Pokemon game? It's a big dragon! Disney has big dragons, DreamWorks has big dragons, Digimon and Bakugan have bigger dragons. And yet Creatures insists every new generation on giving this giant, overhyped lump of I don't give a shit new representation. None of which has even made it remotely good, because unless it sees you as a worthy opponent, it's not going to bother doing anything. I don't even have to continue roasting it. Let him who is without a 4x weakness cast the first stone. Do not defend Squirtle. Stop it right now. You're defending the Squirtle from the anime. You're defending the Squirtle squad. That is not an accurate representation of what Squirtle is, because no Squirtle user is cool enough to represent those shades. You're just admitting you're a Gen 1er who subscribes to MatBat and Death Battle, and you've watched exactly one video from each. Squirtle's a soccer ball with limbs. It's the most bullyable starter in existence. I'm sending it to the moon first pass. Oh, this guy sucks! Wartortle's my second least favorite starter ever. It's literally no better in anything than Squirtle. Sure, that much is relevant, but my main concern is its design. This thing looks like a youth pastor. He looks like he goes to Wendy's for the chili. He looks like he's always going to the gym tomorrow. He looks like he duct tapes homemade spoilers to the back of his car. I want to push him over, take his wallet, and put up a cup of oil on his stomach while he's taking 2 hours to get up. If the Beta Rip title had actually been Squirtle's final evolution, I would have preferred it over this Bowser wannabe that canonically pisses out of its cannons. How do you give something guns and then proceed to make it less cool? You make it a fat ass and screw up the color schemes beyond redemption, that's how. I mean, Blastoise is statistically the best of the starters, but when your competition is Frog Marley and Tooth and Nail List, that is not a high bar to clear. You're better off buying Magikarp and getting insulted for it. Forget Lucario, forget Lopunny, forget Latios, forget Gardevoir. Chikorita is when the Pokephilia jokes started, and unfortunately they weren't always as much jokes as they are nowadays. What with the obvious romantic undertones and the in-show friendship between Ash and this pair-child. And it's not like Chikorita's that attractive of a Pokemon either, its sprite just kinda looks like a placeholder for a better grass starter, which I suppose is what it is. Just ew, all around. And the screen shipping does not stop there. Bayleaf, in conjunction with having the most mundane, facepalm-worthy name of any starter, is also the member of any of Ash's teams that was the most down bad for a 10-year-old, which honestly sounds like a plotline straight from Archive of Our Own. Bayleaf is also one of the most egregious examples of Ash not evolving a mon that needs and deserves it, the other being Corphish. Squirtle and Bulbasaur at least had personalities outside of a single trait gimmick. Bayleaf had no excuse to not be a Meganium. Not that Meganium is that great either. This is somehow the most boring yet the most cluttered of the Johto starters. It has a very obvious flower motif that only uses one flower in its design, a body that's way too big for its head, which is too small for its eyes, and a set of antennae that no animal in its earthen counterpart genus should have. All these things and it still looks so unfinished. I mean, at least Bayleaf has a decent color palette and an actually dynamic headdress. Cyndaquil continues the trend of first stage starters that I want to pick up and punt directly to the moon, especially because of how much, more so than any other fire type starter, it relies on smokescreen cheese to make it through battles. It is so irritatingly helpless that the devs didn't even bother to let it open its eyes except for when it's getting drenched in the stuff that actually kills other members of its type. Everyone tells me that Quilava is the most underrated starter design, especially in Johto, but I can't even begin to justify that, because honestly, this is the one I forget exists the most often. We already have a way more iconic ferret in this generation. Taking another one and setting fire to it a la hamsters and cigarettes feels almost sacrilegious, especially given the ferret is better in literally every way. Even having a Cumulatown as a theme song isn't a downside by comparison. In some circles, Typhlosion is respected more for its Hisuian form. It's a load of horse shit. Neither base Typhlosion nor Highflosion are good Pokemon or designs, and they haven't been since Gen 5, the last time we saw Typhlosion with its fire active while it itself was idle. This giant rat is the literal definition of what not to do with a 3D model of an existing sprite. If you like Totodile, you were the weird kid in elementary. Totodile just looks like the kid that's always getting into trouble, but not because he's actively hurting anybody or being a bully, just because he constantly does stupid stuff that people are, understandably, worried is going to get him hurt. I say good riddance. Put the rubber band back on his snout and get him away from anything sharp, hot, or electrical. The Goth Kid in the modern Stoned Age family. Crocodile is a hate-crime combination of 70s rebel guitarist eyeliner, a body that Patrick Star wouldn't envy, and is that a diaper? On a middle stage mon? Look, it's literally the same pattern as Togepi's shell minus the red parts. It put its egg right back on because even Crocodile wants Crocodile to go back into the womb. Feraligatr is most known for the reason its name is like that. Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal don't have enough spaces in their naming screen to support what its name should be. Feraligator. That's it. That's literally the only reason anyone talks about Feraligatr. Well, that and its penchant for flagrant backsprite nudity, but all the cops are busy with Bayleaf Cass right now, so, Okay, I struggled for a few hours to think of how to word this joke, but come on. Was the rose scene really necessary? We know what you are. Anyhow, Trico is simultaneously the most fleshed out and yet the most bare bones grass starter we've had yet, which is hilarious when you realize that it beats Meganium at literally the only thing it does. Trico's design, especially in the anime, absolutely exudes personality. But when you really boil it down to its bare essentials, what does it even do? The Trico line is the second full line of pure grass-type starters in a row, and somehow Trico itself has the least plant-related abilities and design concepts out of any of them. If you're 14 years old and cannot fathom the idea of your favorite character dating someone of the opposite gender, boy have I got the starter for you! Now before you go telling me I'm contradicting what I said during Trico's entry, let me elaborate. There's a long-standing and deep-seated joke in the Mystery Dungeon community that Grovyle and Dusknoir are not mortal enemies like the game says, but instead secretly lovers who've chased each other across the timeline. And I say joke here with massive air quotes, because when you get right down to it, what? Dusknoir hunted Grovyle down to the ends of the earth, to the end of time, no less, to literally, not figuratively, Kill him so that he can't stop Dusknor from destroying all life on Earth. I mean, headcanon and Doom Toxic Yowie are one thing, but there's a line between that and obliterating the world and the plot that already exists, and we crossed that line during Gale of Despair. And you know what? Take away this badly rewritten explanation for the motivations of a character in a spin-off series that hasn't gotten a fully new title in almost a decade, and what are you left with? The Geico Gecko. If there's one word that describes Sceptile, it's almost. This mon is almost a strong special attacker. It almost has a decent defensive profile, and it almost has a good mega, and it almost has a cool design, and I almost don't think of Dana Gold every time I see this iBad Christmas tree. But there's a saying I live by: almost only works in horseshoes and hand grenades. And I want to throw both of those things at Sceptile's bald lizard head. For the record, I think Marshtomp is actively the worst design in this generation. But one thing it is not is unmemorable. And man, Torchic is flat. If I didn't know and you told me this was the first stage of Hoenn's Route 1 bird and not that of its fire-type starter, I would absolutely believe you, because what on this thing outside of its color scheme says fire? Okay, yeah, get all your laughter out now, I'll wait. Anyways, phallic jokes aside. Who am I kidding? It's Combuskin! It's literally a cock! Whoever designed this thing should have gotten arrested and publicly executed. I don't think I even have to introduce Blaziken to you, and if you played Pokemon with so much as one other person in any game during or past Generation 5, it's probably not for the best of reasons. Blaziken is, in the simplest terms possible, the hophead's choice. In literally any game it's a part of, and yes, that includes Pokken, a Blaziken on the field means that Blaziken's actions, and therefore those of its trainer, will take up about 75% of any match. It's designed around moving fast and hitting hard, but when you take away the broken ability and the smoke coming from the other player mashing every single button on their controller twice a frame during a turn-based game, what you're left with is probably the worst way to play a fire fighting type. Ugh, God! Mudkip, as a piece of culture, exists on a binary scale. Sane people, who like its admittedly cute design or just want to get to Swampert as quickly as possible to make the Hoenn gameplay like Pokemon Black and Blue, are some of the most annoying people you will ever meet in your life. Anyone who thinks Mudkip has any value as a meme should go all the way back to 2008 and stay there, because in many ways, they already are. This is not a joke. Answer this genuinely. Has Marshtomp ever, and I do mean ever, looked good in any official depiction? Art, sprite, model, literally anything? Because I have played almost every single Pokemon game that exists, and I have never found a single frame where it doesn't just give off the same terrifying energy as the monkey from Toy Story 3. Blank, psychotic stare, with a completely flat mouth and perfectly circular eyes. Ugh. If Tyranitar is the Godzilla of the Pokemon world, then Marshtomp is its Jeff the Killer, complete with a matching, prominent virginity complex. I was dreading getting to this point because as much as I tiptoed around Mudkip and I want to throw Marshtomp into an industrial paper shredder, Swampert seemed like it was going to be impossible to diss. Good design, great typing, solid move pool, few reliable checks. Swampert seems tailor-made to trivialize any experience you have with any game it's in. But level with me for a second. Is that what we really need? I mean, this game is already literally made for babies and autistic people. Swampert being so powerful serves as a constant and grim reminder that in any official way to play these games, the difficulty switch will always be set to low. And it has always been on the fans to make it hard enough to be a fun challenge. Go ahead, pick Swampert. Breeze through the game on easy. You'll never be fulfilled.